The family business. My name is Daniel Cooper, and at 32, I'd spent the last decade building something I was proud of. Cooper Financial Advisors, a boutique investment firm in Chicago that specialized in helping middle-class families build sustainable wealth. After watching my parents lose everything in the 2008 recession, I'd made it my mission to prevent others from suffering the same fate. Every certification earned, every late night reviewing portfolios, every client meeting where I turned down risky investments that might have earned me higher commissions, it was all part of building a reputation for integrity in an industry where that word often feels like a marketing gimmick. Then came the call that changed everything. Danny boy. Guess who just became VP of Operations at Cooper Financial? My brother Ryan's voice boomed through my phone speaker, the familiar mix of excitement and entitlement that had characterized him since childhood. I nearly dropped my coffee. What are you talking about? We don't have a VP of Operations. We do now. I just updated the company website and ordered business cards. Dad said it was time I joined the family business. Pretty cool, right? I closed my eyes trying to process what I was hearing. Ryan had never shown any interest in finance. At 29, his resume consisted of 3 abandoned startups, a failed sports blog, and most recently, a podcast about entrepreneurship that had exactly 17 subscribers, 15 of whom were family members. Ryan, we should talk about this in person. This isn't something you can just. Oh, and I took out a business loan to expand the office. Dad co-signed. We're moving to that glass tower on Michigan Avenue. The one with the view of the lake. Our current office is so modest. Clients want to see success, Danny. My stomach dropped. What loan? What are you talking about? Gotta go. Meeting with the interior designer. Come by Mom and Dad's for dinner tonight. We're celebrating. The line went dead. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at the financial planning award I'd received just last month. Most trusted independent advisor in Chicago. What would the selection committee think if they knew my brother, who couldn't maintain a checking account without overdrafting, was now apparently my company's VP? My parents' house in Lincoln Park still looked the same as it had throughout my childhood. An elegant brownstone that represented the success my father had achieved as a surgeon before a tremor in his hands had ended his career. What had changed was the atmosphere inside. There he is. My father stood up from the dining table, arms outstretched, face flushed from the wine that was already flowing. The founder himself. Come sit down, son. Ryan's been sharing his vision for Cooper Financial's expansion. My mother hurried over, kissing my cheek. Isn't it wonderful? The boys working together at last. I spotted the blueprints spread across the table, plans for an office space that looked to be about 5,000 square feet. Nearly 10 times the size of my current location. Ryan, I said carefully, hanging my coat on the rack. Can we talk about this? I wasn't consulted about any loan or expansion. My brother rolled his eyes dramatically. Here we go. Always so cautious. This is why the business has plateaued, Danny. You think too small. My business hasn't plateaued. It's growing at a sustainable rate, with a client retention rate of 96%. Sustainable. Ryan snorted. Code for boring. Dad agrees we need to aim higher. I looked at my father, waiting for him to correct this absurdity. Instead, he smiled apologetically. Daniel, your brother has some excellent ideas. The loan is already approved, $3 million at very favorable terms. I had to co-sign since you weren't available, but it's all for Cooper Financial. $3 million? The room seemed to tilt. Dad, Cooper Financial doesn't need $3 million of debt. We don't need a massive office. Our clients come to us because we're careful with money, including our own. Which is why you're still working out of that shoebox downtown, Ryan interjected. I've already lined up meetings with potential high-net-worth clients. People who wouldn't set foot in your current office. My mother placed a hand on my arm. Daniel, please. Your brother needs this. You know he's struggled to find his path. This is his chance to be part of something successful. There it was. The same refrain I'd heard my entire life. Ryan needed the spotlight in the school play because he was struggling in his classes. Ryan needed to borrow my car, which he subsequently wrecked, because he was having a hard time making friends at college. Ryan needed to live rent-free in my apartment for just a few months, that turned into 2 years because he was figuring things out. And now, apparently, Ryan needed my business, the one thing I'd built entirely on my own. The loan documents require your signature as the company owner, my father said, sliding a folder toward me. Just a formality. Everything's been reviewed by our attorney. Our attorney. Not mine. I picked up the folder without opening it. I'll need to review these myself. And speak with my own lawyer. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Don't you trust us? Ryan asked, hurt coloring his voice, the same hurt he'd perfected since we were kids. It's like you don't even want me to succeed. I stood up, tucking the folder under my arm. This isn't about your success, Ryan. It's about the reputation I've spent a decade building. I can't sign something this significant without proper review. Always the responsible one, my mother sighed, as though my caution was a character flaw rather than the very quality that had made my business thrive. I left without staying for dinner, the weight of their disappointment following me out the door, a familiar burden I'd carried for as long as I could remember. Back in my apartment, I opened the loan documents and felt my blood run cold. This wasn't just a business expansion loan. Ryan had somehow convinced my father to help him take out a loan using Cooper Financial as collateral, but the loan had my electronic signature on it already. With shaking hands, I pulled up my online banking and discovered several large transfers had been made from my business accounts over the past week. Further investigation revealed my email passwords had been changed, and there were new partners added to my business's official registration with the state. This wasn't just Ryan being impulsive. This was methodical. Planned. I called my IT specialist, then my lawyer. By morning, I had the full picture. Ryan had been planning this for months. He'd gained access to my passwords through my parents' home computer, where I'd once logged in during a holiday visit. He'd used my electronic signature, forged documents, and with my father's help, essentially staged a hostile takeover of my own company. The money, nearly $800,000 of it, had been transferred to accounts for office renovations, new furniture, and bizarrely, a luxury condo lease in the same building as the new office space. My brother had arranged a salary for himself that was twice what I paid myself, plus a signing bonus he'd already spent on a new Tesla. The loan documents were even worse. If the business defaulted, my personal assets would be liquidated first. I was on the hook for everything while Ryan and my father had carefully insulated themselves. As I sat surrounded by paperwork in my living room, my phone lit up with a text from Ryan. Just made the announcement on LinkedIn. Check it out. #FamilyBusiness. I opened LinkedIn to find a professional photo shoot of Ryan standing in front of my company logo, announcing the exciting expansion and new direction of Cooper Financial Advisors under the leadership team of the Cooper brothers. The comments were already flowing in. Congratulations from industry colleagues, clients, even my college professors. Everyone celebrating this wonderful family collaboration. That's when I knew what I had to do. You can't be serious. Alice Chin, my attorney, stared at me across her desk. You want to let them do this? I nodded. For now. I want to give Ryan exactly what he thinks he wants. Daniel, they've committed fraud. Multiple counts. We have enough evidence to go to the authorities right now. And destroy my company's reputation in the process, I said. The moment this becomes a legal battle or worse, a criminal case, every client will run for the door. Financial advisor accuses family of fraud isn't exactly a headline that inspires confidence in my money management skills. Alice leaned back in her chair, skeptical. So what's your plan? Ryan wants to be VP of operations? Perfect. Let him operate. Let him sign the lease on that ridiculous office space. Let him hire the staff he's planning to hire. Let him make promises to all those high-net-worth clients he claims to have lined up. While he burns through your money and ruins your business? I shook my head. I've already moved our existing clients' accounts to a separate system. The core of what makes Cooper Financial valuable, our client relationships, is secure. What Ryan has access to is essentially an empty shell with some operating capital. And your parents? They're complicit in this. The pain of that reality still felt like a fresh wound. They think they're helping him. They always have. But this time, I'm going to let them learn what happens when you enable someone with no sense of responsibility. I placed a USB drive on her desk. This contains everything. The forged documents. The unauthorized transfers. The password breaches. Bank records showing my father's involvement. I've also recorded conversations with both of them admitting what they've done, though they don't see it as wrong. And you want me to do what with this? Hold it. For exactly 3 months. That's how long I estimate it will take for Ryan to create enough of a mess that even he can't talk his way out of it. When that happens, not before, we'll use this evidence. This is a risky strategy, Daniel. Less risky than you might think. I know my brother. He talks a big game, but he's never actually run anything. He doesn't understand cash flow, client management, or regulatory compliance. He'll make promises he can't keep, spend money that should be allocated for taxes, and eventually, he'll do something that crosses a compliance line. And until then, I watch and document. And I prepare for phase 2. The grand opening party for the new Cooper Financial offices was exactly as ostentatious as I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than what most of my middle-class clients spent on groceries in a month. I arrived late, intentionally making my entrance just as Ryan was preparing to give his speech. And here he is. Ryan announced, spotting me by the door. The original Cooper. Come on up here, Danny. Every eye in the room turned to me, clients who looked confused by all this sudden change, industry colleagues watching with curiosity, my parents beaming with pride near the front of the room. I made my way to the small platform where Ryan stood with a microphone, accepting his one-armed hug with a practiced smile. Isn't this incredible? He whispered to me before turning back to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, Cooper Financial was founded on the principle that financial advice should be accessible and trustworthy. My brother Daniel started with that vision, and now, with our expanded team and resources, we're taking it to the next level. Applause filled the room. I scanned the faces, noting which of my actual clients were present. Not many. Most of the attendees appeared to be friends of Ryan's, industry people curious about the sudden expansion, and a few high-net-worth individuals who were clearly there for the free champagne rather than any serious interest in our services. Daniel, would you like to say a few words? Ryan offered me the microphone with a flourish. I took it, smiling. I'm overwhelmed by all of this, I said truthfully. When I started Cooper Financial, I never imagined it would grow to this. Also true, though not in the way the audience interpreted it. I want to thank my brother Ryan for his vision, I continued, and encourage all of you to speak with him tonight about your financial needs. This is his project now, and he deserves your full attention. I handed the microphone back to a beaming Ryan before making my way through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries while carefully avoiding any substantive conversations about business. Every time a legitimate client approached me with questions, I directed them to Ryan with variations of, "He's leading our expansion strategy," or "He's handling all new business development." My father cornered me by the bar. "See? This is what the business needed. Look at the caliber of people here tonight." I sipped my sparkling water. "Yes, impressive. How much did all this cost?" "That's not the point, Daniel. It's an investment in the future. Ryan says we'll recoup everything within 6 months with the new clients he's bringing in." "And you believe that?" My father's expression hardened. "You've always been hard on your brother. He's making real connections here. This is what growing a business looks like." "I suppose we'll see," I said, excusing myself as I spotted an actual client looking increasingly concerned after a conversation with Ryan. By the end of the night, I'd spoken privately with each of my existing clients who had attended, giving them my personal cell phone number and assurances that nothing would change with their accounts. Meanwhile, I watched Ryan make grandiose promises to potential new clients: guaranteed returns, fee structures that wouldn't cover our costs, and investment strategies that walked a dangerous line with SEC regulations. My mother hugged me goodbye at the door. "I'm so proud of you for supporting your brother," she said. "I know this must be hard, sharing the spotlight." I kissed her cheek. "Ryan can have all the spotlight he wants, Mom." It wasn't even a lie. The implosion began as I'd predicted during month 2. First came the calls from vendors who hadn't been paid. Then from the new staff members Ryan had hired, reporting that their paychecks had bounced. Finally, from clients who had been promised impossible returns and were now demanding explanations. I documented everything, forwarding each communication to Alice, who was building what she called the most airtight fraud case I've ever seen. My father called in a panic on a Tuesday morning. "Daniel, we need to talk. Ryan says there's some kind of cash flow issue with the business." "Cash flow issue?" I kept my voice neutral. "What kind of issue?" "The payroll account is empty. And apparently the quarterly tax payment is due next week. He thought you were handling that part." "Did he?" "Interesting, considering he removed my access to all the business accounts 6 weeks ago." Silence on the line. "Then, he says it's just a misunderstanding. If you could transfer some money from your personal accounts temporarily." "No." The single word hung between us. "Daniel, be reasonable. This is your business too." "Is it? Because according to the documents you both signed, I'm just an employee now. A highly liable employee, but an employee nonetheless." "Son, please. Your brother is trying his best." "His best to what, Dad? Bankrupt my company? Destroy my professional reputation? What exactly was the end goal here?" Another long pause. "He needs your help," my father finally said, his voice smaller. "No, what he needs are consequences. For once in his life." I ended the call and turned back to my laptop, where I'd been working on the documentation for my new company. Mitchell Advisors, named for my mother's maiden name, was already registered with the state, already had office space leased, modest, appropriate office space, and most importantly, already had commitments from 94% of Cooper Financial's original clients to transfer their accounts once I gave the word. 1 week later, Ryan finally called me directly. "We need to talk." His voice lacked its usual confidence. "I'm listening." "The office, there's a situation. Could you come down here?" I agreed to meet him at the lavish office space he'd leased. When I arrived, I found the electricity had been turned off. A few confused employees sat in the dim light from the windows, looking at their phones. Ryan pulled me into what had been designated as his corner office. A space 3 times the size of my original office, now populated with furniture that still had price tags attached. "It's a temporary setback," he began, pacing. "Some of the investments I made are just taking longer to pay off than expected." "What investments, Ryan?" He waved vaguely. "Various opportunities. The important thing is, we need an influx of capital right now. I know you've got savings. If you could just..." "No." He stopped pacing. What do you mean no? This is your company too. I sat down in his expensive leather chair. Is it? Let's review. You forged my signature on loan documents. You transferred company funds without authorization. You changed the business registration without my consent. You locked me out of the accounts. I ticked off each point on my fingers. At what point in all of that was this still my company? That's not fair. Dad and I were trying to help you think bigger. You were playing it too safe. And how's the alternative working out? His face flushed. This is just a small setback. With a little more capital. The answer is no, Ryan. No more money. No more bailouts. No more enabling. So you're just going to let the company fail? All those clients lose their investments. I couldn't help but laugh. That's your concern now? The clients? Where was that concern when you were promising them returns you knew were impossible? I can make it work if you just... No, I said again, standing up. You wanted to run Cooper Financial. Now you get to deal with the consequences. As I turned to leave, he called after me, desperation in his voice. What am I supposed to tell Dad? He co-signed the loan. I paused at the door. Tell him the truth, Ryan. For once in your life. The official implosion came 3 days later, when the SEC arrived at the Cooper Financial offices with questions about certain promises made to clients. Apparently, one of Ryan's new high-net-worth contacts had connections at the regulatory agency and didn't appreciate being misled about guaranteed returns. My phone rang that evening. My father again. Daniel, it's a disaster. The SEC is investigating. Ryan says he could face criminal charges. We need your help. What kind of help, Dad? You know how to talk to these people. You understand the regulations. If you could just explain that it was all a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was fraud. Multiple counts of it, in fact. Silence. Then, what are you saying? I'm saying that Ryan committed securities fraud. And you helped him. And now there are consequences. He's your brother? Yes. And he stole my company, my reputation, and very nearly my future. With your help. My father's voice broke. Please, Daniel. He could go to jail. The pain in his voice still reached something in me despite everything. I'll make a deal with you. Both of you. Anything. I meet with you, Ryan, and my attorney tomorrow morning. You both sign confessions admitting exactly what you did. You agree to a repayment plan for every penny that was stolen. Ryan resigns from any position at Cooper Financial and agrees never to use my name or business connections again. And in return? In return, I'll speak to the SEC. I'll explain that clients' funds were never actually at risk, that this was an internal family dispute that got out of hand. I have enough documentation and enough relationship capital with the regulators that I might be able to get them to focus on civil penalties rather than criminal charges. You do that for your brother? The hope in his voice was palpable. I'd do it for our family, I said. One last time. The meeting the next morning was somber. Ryan looked like he hadn't slept in days, his designer clothes wrinkled, his usual swagger replaced by a hunched posture I'd never seen before. My father looked older, the weight of his choices evident in the new lines on his face. Alice laid out the documents I'd prepared. Full confessions, a payment plan spanning 5 years, and resignation papers that would remove Ryan from any association with Cooper Financial. This is everything? My father asked, scanning the papers. Not quite, I said. There's one more thing. I slid a final document across the table. It outlined a payment plan for my father as well, covering his portion of the stolen funds and fraudulent loan. I didn't steal anything, he protested weakly. You co-signed fraudulent documents. You helped plan this. You were fully aware that Ryan was accessing my accounts without permission. Ryan looked up, surprise crossing his face. Dad knew. My father had the decency to look ashamed. I thought it would work out. I thought once Daniel saw the potential of a bigger operation, he'd get on board. Sign the papers, Alice said, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. All of them. Or we walk away and let the SEC investigation take its course. They signed. 3 months later, I stood in the modest new offices of Mitchell Advisors, watching as the last of the signage was installed. The transition had been smoother than I'd expected. Most clients had been relieved to follow me to the new company, particularly after the news of financial irregularities at Cooper Financial had begun to circulate. The SEC had accepted our explanation and documentation, ultimately deciding to pursue only civil penalties against Ryan and my father. Substantial penalties but not criminal charges. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Made my first payment. On time. Just wanted you to know. It was a small thing but significant. According to my mother, Ryan had taken a job at an actual marketing firm, working for someone else for the first time in his adult life. He was living in a studio apartment, driving a used Honda instead of the Tesla, and by all accounts actually showing up to work every day. I texted back a simple received. Thank you. Our relationship would never be what it once was, too much had been broken. But perhaps something more honest could eventually take its place. My father had been slower to come around. The first few weeks after the settlement were filled with defensive voicemails about family loyalty and how I'd overreacted. But eventually those messages changed. I've been seeing a therapist, he told me during our first cup of coffee together in months. She's helping me understand why I always favored Ryan, why I put so much responsibility on you. I have a lot to make up for. I didn't disagree. Your new company looks good, he added, gesturing to the business card I'd given him. Mitchell was your mother's maiden name, right? I nodded. Seemed appropriate to make a fresh start. She's proud of you, you know. We both are. Even if I had a strange way of showing it. That evening as I locked up the office, I caught my reflection in the glass door. I looked different somehow, more confident, more defined. The man who had allowed himself to be used in the name of family obligation was gone, replaced by someone who understood that real love didn't require self-sacrifice. My phone buzzed with an email from Alice. Dinner next week? I'm thinking of starting a workshop about financial boundaries and families. Your story could help others. I typed back, count me in. After all, the best revenge isn't just success, it's using your experience to help others find their strength too.